The death that changed everything. Before we get into all of them, we need to talk about the one that set the standard. Spock dying in Wrath of Khan. If you've seen it, you know. If you haven't, what are you doing here? The whole movie builds around Kirk refusing to accept a no-win scenario. He literally cheated on a training test called the Kobayashi Maru, just to avoid facing the idea that sometimes you lose. And then the movie hands him the real version of that test. The Enterprise is crippled, the Genesis device is about to go off, and Spock just walks into the irradiated engine room, alone. Because the math made sense to him. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He fixes the ship, he saves everyone. And then he dies behind a sheet of glass while Kirk watches and can't do a thing about it. Undeserved? Absolutely. This is one of the greatest minds the Federation ever produced, dying in agony from radiation poisoning. But it's also one of the most earned deaths in science fiction history, because it finally forced Kirk to reckon with something he'd spent his whole career running from. Loss is real. And it doesn't care how many times you've beaten the odds before. The bagpipes at the funeral hit different when you understand that. When the writers just wanted to hurt you. Not every death in Star Trek is poetic. Some of them are just cruel. And the cruelest ones tend to hit characters who had no business being in the crossfire. David Marcus is a perfect example. Kirk's son, a scientist, a guy who built things instead of blowing them up. In the search for Spock, a Klingon boarding party takes him hostage, and David, who is not a fighter, has never been a fighter, tries to protect the people around him anyway. He gets stabbed, and Kirk has to hear it happen over a comm line without being able to do a single thing. That death serves one purpose: to show how brutal the Klingons are and to make Kirk's grief personal. It works, but David deserved better. He was the future of Federation science, and he got cut down so the villain could feel more threatening. Then there's Van Mater on the Next Generation. The Enterprise is passing through a nebula that's messing with the ship's molecular structure, and Van Mater just falls through the floor. And when the structure re-solidifies, she's merged with the deck plating. Gone. Instantly. No warning, no heroism, no meaning. Just a reminder that space doesn't care about you, that one sticks with people because it's so random. She wasn't doing anything wrong, she was just there. And then Sonak in the motion picture. A transporter malfunction during rematerialization. Two officers show up on the pad as something that shouldn't be described in detail, screaming, and then they're gone. It's horrifying. And it's there partly to clear the way for Spock to come back as science officer, which makes it feel even more disposable in hindsight. The deaths that felt right. Now let's talk about the ones that felt earned. The ones where you maybe pumped your fist a little and didn't feel bad about it. Kai Wynn Adami. 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, this woman spent every episode being manipulative, self-serving, and politically ruthless. She was the kind of religious leader who used faith as a ladder to climb over everyone else. By the end, she'd gone full villain, worshipping the Pa-wraiths, the dark counterparts to the Bajoran prophets, and tried to double-cross Gul Dukat to grab even more power for herself. The Pa-wraiths consumed her. The very forces she tried to use turned on her. And the audience collectively exhaled. That's what a deserved death looks like. It's not just punishment, it's poetic. She was destroyed by her own ambition, which is exactly what her whole arc was about. Gowron is another one. The Klingon chancellor who let his ego and political games bleed into the middle of a war the Federation desperately needed to win. Worf challenges him to personal combat, beats him, and that's it. Klingon justice. Clean, brutal, and completely in line with the culture. Martok takes over, the war effort gets back on track. Deserved. And Shinzon in Nemesis. A Picard clone who wiped out the entire Romulan Senate with a radiation weapon that turned them into crumbling ash statues. Genuinely one of the most disturbing images in the franchise. His death during the final confrontation with Picard was necessary. There was no other way that story ends. Though it's worth noting, Shinzon was also a victim. He was created, abandoned, and raised in a dilithium mine. His cruelty was almost inevitable given what was done to him. Deserved, but not without tragedy. The gray area. When the good guys make the call. Some of the most uncomfortable deaths in Star Trek aren't caused by villains. They're caused by the people we're supposed to root for. Tuvix is the big one. A transporter accident merges Tuvok and Neelix into a single person. A genuinely new individual with his own personality, his own memories, his own relationships with the crew. Over a few weeks, Tuvix becomes someone people care about. And then a way is found to reverse the process. Tuvix begs for his life. He makes a coherent, rational argument for his right to exist. The doctor refuses to perform the procedure because it violates his medical ethics. And Janeway does it herself anyway. She gets Tuvok and Neelix back. And Tuvix is gone. Is it deserved? Is it undeserved? That's the whole point. The episode refuses to answer that cleanly. Janeway made a command decision. She chose 2 lives she knew over 1 life she'd just met. A lot of viewers never forgave her for it, and honestly, that discomfort is exactly what the episode was going for. Then there's Ensign Sito in Lower Decks, a young Bajoran officer trying to rebuild her reputation after an Academy scandal. Picard sends her on a covert mission to return a Cardassian defector. Her shuttle gets intercepted. She doesn't make it back. Picard authorized that mission. He sent her out there, and she died doing exactly what he asked. That's the reality of Starfleet that the show usually glosses over. Sometimes the captain's orders get people killed and nobody holds a ceremony about it. The deaths that felt like a betrayal. And then there are the deaths that made fans genuinely angry. Not because they were sad, but because they felt disrespectful to the character. Kirk dying in Generations. After everything, the Klingons, Khan, the Nexus, James T. Kirk dies because a rusted metal bridge collapses during a fistfight on a remote planet. He gets buried under a pile of rocks, that's it. One of the most iconic characters in science fiction history, and the writers gave him a death that could have happened to anyone. There's even an argument that a single misspoken line from Riker earlier in the film set off a chain of events that led directly to Kirk's death. A butterfly effect of bad writing that robbed the character of the ending he deserved. Fans have been arguing about it for decades. Trip Tucker in the Enterprise finale is arguably worse. Trip dies in the last episode sacrificing himself to stop some intruders, but the whole episode is framed as a holodeck recreation, being watched by Riker and Troy. So Trip's death doesn't even happen in real time. It's a story within a story. A fan-favorite character, one of the best things about that show, killed off as a plot device in an episode that was already controversial for other reasons. The backlash was significant, and it's never really gone away. And then there's Icheb in Picard, a former Borg drone who'd been taken in by the Voyager crew, given a second chance at life, and built into a character people genuinely loved. In Picard, he's lured into a trap and has his Borg implants harvested while he's still conscious. No anesthesia. 7 of 9 finds him in pieces and has to mercy kill him. It's brutal. It's graphic. And for a lot of fans, it felt like the show was using a beloved character as shock value to establish how dark the world had gotten. Undeserved in every possible sense. The deaths that hit differently. Some deaths land hard not because of how they happen, but because of what they mean. Tasha Yar in Skin of Evil was the first time a main character in Star Trek died and stayed dead. Armus, as a creature described as pure evil, literally made of the discarded darkness of an entire civilization, kills her with a casual energy blast. Not in battle, not heroically. Just to prove he can. She didn't get a last stand. She didn't get a speech. She just died. And that was the point. Space doesn't care about rank or potential or how much the audience likes you. That episode changed what Star Trek was willing to do. Jadzia Dax dying at the end of DS9 Season 6 hit differently because of how alive she was. Murdered by Dukat while possessed by a pay-wraith. The Dax symbiont survived and eventually joined with Ezri, but Jadzia, her personality, her laugh, her relationship with Worf, that was gone. Fans still debate whether Ezri counts as the same character. Most say no. And Chaya, Spock's pet Sehilat from the animated series. A big bear-like creature that defended young Spock from a predator and got mortally wounded doing it. Spock had to choose between letting him suffer or having him put down. It's the family dog dies moment in the middle of a Star Trek episode, and it absolutely wrecked people. It also quietly explains a lot about why Spock became who he became. His first real encounter with loss, and he handled it with logic because that was the only way he knew how. The ones who came back, and what that means. Here's the thing about Star Trek deaths. A lot of them don't stick. Spock came back. Data died in Nemesis and then showed up in Picard as a reconstructed personality built from multiple versions of himself. Data, Lore, B4, Lol all merged together. Is that the same Data? Most fans say no. It's a new entity, which means the original sacrifice still counts, but the character gets to live on in a different form. Shax in Lower Decks died heroically in the Season 1 finale, and was back in Season 2 with almost no explanation. The show actually made a joke about it. Something along the lines of bridge crew always finding a way back. It's meta, it's funny, and it's also kind of true. In a universe with time travel, parallel dimensions, and transporter technology, death is more of a suggestion than a rule. But that creates a real problem. If death can always be undone, does it carry any weight? The franchise has wrestled with this for years. The answer it keeps landing on is, it depends on the story. Spock's death in Wrath of Khan still hits hard even knowing he comes back, because the film earns the grief in the moment. The resurrection doesn't erase what the loss meant. The ones that stuck with you. Ro Lauren coming back in Picard Season 3 felt like a gift. A character who'd been gone for decades, now a Starfleet intelligence officer, reconnecting with Picard after years of complicated history. And then she crashes her shuttle into a changeling-controlled hangar to save him and Riker. Heroic, meaningful, and still deeply unfair. She'd just come back. There was so much left unresolved between her and Picard. Fans felt robbed, not because the death was badly written, but because she deserved more time. Ziyal in Deep Space Nine, Dukat's daughter, half Cardassian, half Bajoran, caught between two worlds that both rejected her. Murdered by Damar, an innocent person destroyed by her father's ambition, one of the quieter tragedies of the Dominion War and one of the ones that lingers. And Jatrell, a Hakonian scientist who developed a weapon that killed hundreds of thousands of Talaxians, including Neelix's entire family. He shows up on Voyager dying from the same radiation his weapon caused. He spent years trying to figure out if he can undo what he did. He can't. He dies anyway. And Neelix forgives him. That's the one that gets you. Not the death itself, but the forgiveness. A war criminal dying in peace because the person he hurt most chose to let go of the hatred. That's Star Trek at its best. Not just exploring space, but exploring what it means to be human. What all of this actually means. Star Trek has been killing characters for roughly 60 years now. It started with anonymous crew members in red shirts dying to show that the mission was dangerous. It evolved into something much more complicated. Deaths that interrogate ethics, challenge the audience, and sometimes just make you furious at the writers. The deserved deaths give us closure. The undeserved ones give us something to carry. And the ones in the gray area, Tuvix, Cedo, Kirk on that bridge, those are the ones that keep people talking because they don't have clean answers. That's the point. The final frontier isn't just space. It's the question of what a life is worth, who gets to decide when it ends, and whether the universe owes anyone a good death. Spoiler, it doesn't. But Star Trek keeps asking anyway.